Hello and welcome back to the Witch's Way podcast. I'm Kat.
And I'm Jamie. And tonight we are talking about the mother wound.
And, this is a topic that probably hits home with a lot of our viewers.
It's home with me.
It's home with me in a major way.
Yeah.
It's complicated. It can be painful. The relationships that we have with our mother can be some of the most challenging, I think, in our lives. If you don't have a challenging relationship with your mom, I'm so envious because almost every woman that I know does, although there's plenty that do not have challenges. But
I think it's more like ups and downs, though, too.
Yeah,
like maybe it was challenging when the lady was a teenager or the mom, but there's also that just healing process through time. We've not always been 100%
That's
okay.
true. Our relationship has evolved
several times. So.
It's true. I think of us now that we're like BFFs.
Right, exactly.
But it wasn't always like that.
No.
But when you were young, it was like that.
Right. So it's like we had this time where it was great, and then we fell off. And we didn't talk ever, and now we're best friends again.
So what we're going to talk about, in addition to our own shit,
always our own shit and shit you might relate with.
We're going to talk about these relationships, and we're going to talk about the causes of them and how they manifest.
Yeah.
But before we get started with that, the last time we recorded, we updated you on what was going on with all the medical stuff. So I told Jamie I thought we should give you guys a brief update on Cameron, because there's not really anything much going on to report with Tony, Jamie's husband.
Yeah.
But with Cameron, there's a kind of a lot going on. So you want to can you just give the audience a 5-minute, where we
probably
are?
Not 5 minutes. But how about a minute?
1 minute, whatever it is, just something to catch everyone up.
I don't actually remember the last thing we talked about. I'll tell you guys where I'm at right now. I'm just managing day to day. I don't really have the energy to retain a lot of things. Like even starting our podcast tonight, it's kind of like, whoa, am I doing everything right? Am I remembering all this stuff? I'm not. I forgot my iPad. So today you're going to hear pages turning, because I am going back to the old school way, like we used to do 2 years ago with paper, where I'll be flipping pages. So for me, it's like every day is just, what do I tackle today? But for Cameron, after surgery last week, they got 90% of the infection out of his lung that was collapsed. His lungs reinflated, and he's been doing really well. That 10% that the doctor couldn't get is they're working on how they're going to address that. It's super close to his heart, so they weren't able to get it from where they went in. They went in through his back to do the chest surgery. And so we'll find out on Friday if they have to do a second surgery, or if this antibiotic soup mix that they put in his chest and had him literally turn like a rotisserie chicken every 20 minutes to try to spread the liquid around in his chest. Yeah. I was like, you're a rotisserie chicken right now. Just a timer for every 20 minutes, just turn. So we'll see how effective that was, but we won't know more until next week. But I will say today he ate 2 lunches, so he's definitely feeling better, because in the last 5 weeks he had lost 30 pounds. Yeah. So he's been very, 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 very ill.
Jamie was gone over the weekend, so I was up there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it was remarkable to see how he's progressing and how
coming
he's
back to life.
Yeah, he really is. He really is coming back to life. I mean. Mm-hmm. The last time I saw him before this trip to the hospital where they discovered his collapsed lung, I thought he was dying. He looked like he was dying.
He looked like he was dying.
And I think he probably could have if definitely. But anyway, that's what's going on. So I think that's good news. So thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
And Jamie's right. She's got a lot on her plate. It's just the day to day. She's got to be up at the hospital at 7:00 in the morning some days, and then
lots of doctor talks.
Lots of
just trying to be there for him. He's stuck in a hospital.
He's been in there a week.
Over a week.
Yeah,
again. Sunday was a week. So
this all started April 1st. So it's been going on 6 weeks now, and we're still not. It looks like things. We're not out of the woods, but
we're close.
It's getting better.
Yeah.
It definitely looks like he's improving, and I think the biggest thing is he doesn't want to leave the hospital now until he's 100%.
He's not rushing to.
He's not rushing to get out like he was when he was in
the first time.
From April 1st, April 16th. He couldn't wait to get out, and he probably really got out too soon, which, you can't ever go back and say, well, if we'd have done this or done that differently, things might be different. It's pointless to do that. But he really did with that first stay, that first 2-week stay. He was chomping at the bit to get out of there. He really, and he did. And then things went downhill. So anyway, things are better now.
Things are better.
But Jamie's still dealing with a lot of fog because there's
a lot of brain fog.
Because there's just so much to manage with all of this that it's all consuming. So that's a brief update on where we are.
It probably did take us 5 minutes to say.
So we'll go. Along with the mother-daughter common patterns that we see or themes that we see, we're going to also talk about how to heal the mother wound. So
we're focusing on just 2 areas because you guys know how we can get into talking a lot. And I think that the most important things for everybody to really know so they can start the work is identifying it and kind of what it looks like in real life and then healing it. And you can, of course, explore this topic more on your own, especially if you have really deep wounds that you haven't even started uncovering. And I think a lot of times I see that my friends have these things. Like I'll hear stuff or see stuff and I'm like, I know somebody who that's exactly how it is for them, So you can also pass this information off to other women that this might be really helpful for them. Yeah. So I think the first thing we want to do is really start by understanding, like maybe you've never heard of what the mother wound is. So we're going to dive into what is the mother wound.
A subtitle or an alternate title for this webinar or this podcast could be mommy issues.
Mommy issues. But, and the only reason that's we give everything a first name of easy to remember, mommy issues. And what I thought of with mommy issues was I thought about the men that I've dated with mommy issues. I didn't really think about mother-daughter.
Does everybody have mommy issues? Yeah. It's such a,
And today we are really focusing on mother-daughter relationships. We're not getting into all mommy issues and all parenting issues and stuff. We're really focusing.
Big.
It is.
Yeah. It's way too big.
That could be its own podcast, just all that. And just dealing with children, parenting relationships. But the mother wound is the unspoken pain or the unresolved trauma it's also unmet needs that are passed down from our mothers. So it's our experience as we've seen our mother mothering us. This could be like a drinking game where every time you say mother, you have to take it.
There you go.
We're going to say mother so much.
I love that.
I already know it.
I love that. Bring out the something.
a lot of times, the mother wound, when we start uncovering it, and you're going to realize that this isn't about blame, but it is something it stems from the societal, cultural, and familial. Help me say the word.
Familial, I think.
Familial. Yeah.
Family.
The family expectations that are placed on women. Yeah. And that leads to how they treat their children. So we forget when we have issues with parents or people or our own mothers, like we're talking about today, we forget to realize everything that happened to them before we got there. And that this is part of that uncovering journey right now.
It's true. We do. I do. I know.
Sure. Because we only see it from our perspective. Mm-hmm. But as trying to be our higher selves and do better, this is why we start exploring these topics so that we can stop looking outward and being like, you did this, blame, blah, 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 all that. We more take accountability for ourselves. And then it eases that tension with our parents and go, they did the best they could,
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe you say that. Maybe you're like, no, they were fucking awful and I don't forget them. That's okay too.
That's okay too. No, it's okay. That's a protection thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Protect your energy at all costs.
Yeah.
We also talk about it's a generational cycle as mothers have daughters and daughters have more daughters. And you get this family line of women where they see the patterns or the behaviors repeated, the ways in which our mothers were hurt, unfulfilled, and unable to express themselves fully when they were children it ripples through us in very unexpected ways. But when you think about it, it's oh, I really get that. That's why the generational curses thing comes to mind where people say that,
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. It's generational trauma. That's a big thing. Yeah.
So origins and causes, as Jamie mentioned, these are the emotional burdens that we as daughters carry, oftentimes because of our own mothers' unresolved pain and insecurities and limitations. And I think depending on which generation you're from, there was less talking about pain and trauma and past and healing and all of that So that
Absolutely.
I feel that like with my mother, we didn't have those types of conversations, but with my own daughters, we definitely have we're able to talk on a different level than I was ever able to speak with on my own mother. So my relationship with my daughters is a lot different than it was with my mother. I feel like I have a more balanced relationship with my daughters where we're open. With my own mother, it was less trust, I think, is how I would define that. Less trusting that if I was to say the wrong thing, I would be judged, which is pretty common for my mom. But that's her. She's 80. What? 88?
I have no
She's
idea.
88. I think she's in her mid 80s or something like that. But anyway, so the wounds that we have are these burdens that our own mothers weren't able to resolve. They brought that into their parenting style and their interactions, especially when they had a female child that they were dealing with, because they probably had issue with their mother. I know my mother had an issue with her mother.
That's why we talk about the generational cycle of that.
Exactly. Yeah. But again, like Jamie also said a minute ago, this isn't about blaming. It's as we elevate, as we go through our journey as witches and spiritual beings, we try to elevate from the finger pointing, because it doesn't help us resolve the problems. To look at someone else and say, "Oh,
you did this to me.
You did this to me." It's kind of like the blame game, which doesn't help us. And I think it's, if we can get to the point where we can look at our mothers and try to see them as a child that they once were, and realize that they also experienced traumas from their own mother in their life, and that we don't know anything about. Unless they told us about it, we don't know what they went through. But they went through shit. Yeah. Especially depending on what their life was, if there was a divorce, if there was all these things, that impact children. So if we can look at our mothers as children and remember that they were once a little girl too, I think that's helpful if you're not in a place where, you can either forgive or just choose not to be hurt and angry about things that happened. I think being able to put your mom in that light of this child, I know that helped me when I thought of my mom that way as a little girl. I have a picture of her as like a 3-year-old, and I can look at her and I can think of all the things, I look at her and I know what that little girl was going to go through later on. I was like, yeah, no wonder. Okay. Yeah. No wonder. Yeah. So not about blaming. It's about more about understanding, and then also finding a place where we can either forgive and have some kind of other kind of relationship, or if we can't forgive, and that's okay if you can't, because some things are so egregious that we can't move past them. Sexual abuse, if you had a mother that allowed stepdad to molest you or beat you or otherwise abuse you in some kind of way or abandon you, or, just there's lots of stories, so many stories, but some things we can't forgive. And if you can't, then you got to be able to move on from that regardless. So it's like, at least be able to leave it in the past and not have that, weighing heavy on your soul or eating away at your soul because you're holding grudges. So,
and I did put something in here for that, because it's remothering yourself. Mm-hmm. It's like being the mother for yourself that you didn't get. Because there's also things like abandonment and adoption, and there's just where you miss that, where you're wondering what could have been. That's also part of it. Yeah, I think it's about understanding how her wounds, our mother's wounds, shaped us. I mean, because that's how we experience life, is through her, whatever shaped her, so it did affect us.
Other things, though, there are societal causes to this, like, mothers are, there's expectations that have been placed on mothers since the beginning of time. Like, you're the nurturer, you're the caregiver, you're self-sacrificing, you're flawless. There's this impossible ideal. If you think about the women from the 60s and how they were portrayed in commercials, if you've ever seen old commercials or you're old enough to remember commercials from the 60s and how women were portrayed as, taking care of the house and cooking and taking care of the children and waiting by the door, looking pretty party and all dressed up with makeup on and a martini in her hand. That was my mother when I was a kid.
I can't imagine the pressure of
She
that.
took care of 6 children all day long while my dad worked. And then when he came home at night, she was waiting with a pitcher of martinis, and all the kids were banned from showing their faces until we were called. But you know what? That was society's expectation of her, because when I think about all the ladies in my neighborhood, this was like 1969, okay? And all the ladies, it was the same for every single one of them.
I feel like that was part of a TV show, though, too. I mean, you got to think about how
portrayed. Well, yeah.
TV shows also portrayed this, like, this is what a housewife looks like, or this is what a good wife looks like. Then they start labeling it, right? Are you a good wife?
Yeah,
do you
exactly.
do Oh.
So our mothers, especially depending on the age of your mother, had to deal with that. And even today, even mothers today, my millennial daughters, there's expectations on them too. Like, what does a millennial mom let her children do or not let her children
versus a Gen X or a Gen Z or all of I don't get into the labels. I don't even know. I think I'm in a cusp somewhere. I'm just me. I do what the fuck I want. I don't know.
Well, I only use that label of the generational label is because we can kind of put a time frame on it, so we know that,
because then it's like screen kids. Jolene calls them tablet kids or iPad kids or something.
iPad kids.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh man, I kind of lived outside of some of that. I think the social or societal expectations really created like the impossible ideals. Like, this is how real life is. That you just talked the other day about how you knew that your mom was on amphetamines or something.
Yes,
because that's how they managed their stress.
Yeah, so I came across this reel. It's like, this is how things were in the 60s, and they showed all these women, and like, women didn't talk about their problems, but they were like, they were told they had to be thin. There's a commercial where it's like, yeah, you have to be super thin for your husband. And there's a Tab commercial. So there's a reel going around somewhere on TikTok. Tab, it was a diet drink. Yeah.
Oh.
Tab was a diet drink. And so they sold this to women as, drink Tab so that you can stay slim and attractive to your husband, which of course was the most important thing for a woman to do, other than be this unrealistic, mother that, never got upset or all of these things. But anyway, this commercial was about how women in the 60s, they were told these things like, be beautiful, be thin, all this stuff. And, no matter what, my mom raised 6 kids. That's a lot of kids. That's a lot of kids. And she had to cook, there was no microwaves. There was probably frozen dinners, but we weren't eating those. But cooking every day, taking care of the house, taking care of 6 screaming
laundry,
kids.
Cleaning.
Cleaning, shopping, doctor's appointments, all the things. Kids getting sick at school and then having to get picked up and all that kind of stuff. But what this reel was about was like, women were like, oh no, they gave them diet pills. Okay. So in the 60s, diet pills were like the real deal. Kind of like when they put actual cocaine in Coca-Cola and then gave it to people. And it's like, wow, I feel really good after this. I was like, yeah, I bet you do. So with women, what they did then, before they knew the side effects, how bad amphetamines were for us, is they gave women diet pills. And my mom was chunky like me, or I'm chunky like her, whichever way. So she took diet pills. And I remember when she told me at one point in time that she was hooked on diet pills. And then I put it all together. I was like, those were like Black Beauties. These were strong amphetamines. And I thought to myself, wow, that really explains some erratic behavior from my mother, like craziness, like cut off all my hair, kind of like psycho shit. So that was just one crazy incident with her. But anyway, that's, so women were like, don't complain. Everything's good. Here, take these pills to feel better.
Expectations.
And take these pills to stay skinny for your husband, because that's what you're supposed to do, is be an attractive wife and all that. That's so important.
Yeah. So that's one of the common wounds where it comes from, is these societal expectations, right? Another one is from cultural conditioning. And if you've been exposed to different mothers in different cultures, we grew up with a lot of Latina, specifically Mexican, and then, African-American moms. So I got to see those two cultures specifically more in home and sort of how they raise their kids, or the lack of sometimes, and just the family dynamics. And then, my mom being a single mom for so much of her time and all the stress that came with that, it's like you have the cultural conditioning on top of it, where a woman's worth is tied to her role as a mother. It's an expectation to have either a lot of kids or, depending on where you are. That's also societal too, I guess. So it's like, did you go to college first and have kids? But there's all these things that were placed on them as an expectation for their worth as a role in the family. Is like, are you a good mom or not? Or how are you as a mom? Did you complete this thing? Are your kids healthy? Are they growing? Are they doing the things? And we're going to get into the worth part of that.
Well,
yeah.
The only thing I wanted to be, nobody ever talked to me about going to college or like, what are you going to do for a job? That was not a conversation that was happening when I was a kid.
That's the unfulfilled dreams.
So
right?
the only thing that I wanted was to be a mom. I wanted almost to emulate my own mother, and I wanted 6 kids. I thought.
Oh, that's why I loved the beginning of the Barbie movie. They showed how like before Barbie, which I didn't know this, but before Barbie, it was like all little girls played with dolls and they were moms. And then Barbie came out and she was like, I'm a flight attendant, I'm a veterinarian, I ride horses, I'm an astronaut, whatever. It was like Barbie sort of led into a woman can be anything she wants to be. Because the cultural expectations, it's like, or societal even, little girls, it's not automatic for them to be like, I want to be a mom, right? That wasn't my goal. That was not my dream. I wanted to travel the world and like never settle down. But that's where if we're forced into the role of mom, or that's how your worth is tied and you're trying to complete that thing, then you have deep down inside of you all these unfulfilled dreams that you really wanted to do that you never get to do because nobody's saying, yes, do what you want to do, live your best life. Nobody was saying that back then.
What would you like to be when you grow up?
Right.
What are my choices? Then we have generational trauma. So we already touched on this a little bit. My mom had a mom. And her mom had a mom, and every mom has a mom. Well, every mom has a mom.
That's why we do the work now, so that we're not passing down that pain for generations to come. It's the unhealed stuff.
If your mother felt unloved, she might have struggle with expressing love in a healthy way, and it can go back, generations from there. I mean, these things definitely get passed on.
Yeah. The generational trauma.
I know when I decided, or when I found out that I was pregnant with my son, which is my first child, I decided at that time, I was like, I'm not going to be my mother. That was my goal, was to be different from my mother, because I know how she made me feel unloved, or I felt unloved in that house. And, and from her, because she was super judgmental. She was, her behavior was erratic. She was a lot psycho, depending on the day. And of course, I didn't know anything other than I didn't know what her problems were. I just knew she had a problem with me. And it was not a good feeling as a kid to feel like your mother didn't like you, or even stronger word than that. So
the fourth really common mother wound is that emotional unavailability, that they that happens for them and their life experiences. And then that's what they bring to the relationship when they have that daughter. Mothers who were neglected or criticized, they may unintentionally mirror those same behaviors to their daughter, because that's if they like who they are, but that doesn't even have to be the case. But it's like, that's all they know. If you don't know what you don't know. So if you never got a better example and that's how you were raised, that's probably how you're going to raise your daughter. You're going to treat her how you were treated, and that's going to continue on. If a mother never saw real love, compassion, or kindness, if she never knew what that looked like, how could she be expected to change herself to give it to the child? And I think that as we got further away from those close family dynamics where nobody talked about their problems, and it was burn the bras, and it was like free love and hippie, and we got into just talking about everything, we finally started to say, hey, I have been in pain and I'm not okay. And that just led to a bigger conversation, and it's continued on. Because even psychology, the practice of psychology, which is what I studied, didn't really get going until, the 50s and 60s. And because we weren't okay. We weren't as a society okay enough to say, hey, let's examine these problems further. Maybe it's not their fault. Hey, maybe there's something more going on here. Hey, what would humans do if we locked them all in a jail and we gave, all these pretend students, that's like the prison experiment, and how quickly people's behaviors change just by labeling them guards and prisoners and what they accepted to happen to them. I mean, so psychology just getting started about how we act as humans in roles that we're not prepared for. And that's part of being a mom, I think. You don't know what you don't know. There weren't a bunch of parenting books back then. There weren't parenting magazines.
Dr. Spock was really the only thing around.
Dr. Spock?
Dr. Spock had a parenting. Spock? No, his name was Dr. Spock. I don't know, but he was like the only guy that did parenting books. And I don't know anything about him. I just know that was a thing when my parents were parenting.
You heard it?
Yeah, I heard it.
Okay.
I think my parents got their parenting advice from Bill Cosby, though. Bill Cosby then was really funny and a comedian. And I remember them having records of Bill Cosby doing stand-up comedy. And he always talked about family and kids. And it was freaking hilarious. I wish I could remember. If you ever get to listen to some old, like through the 60s, Bill Cosby comedy, when he talks about parenting stuff, it's really quite funny.
Yeah, is he the one that got like...
Yeah, he's the one. Yeah. Later on, he ended up not being...
Pearls.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my fucking God.
But
God
back in the late 60s or mid 60s or whatever, my parents had records of recordings of him doing stand-up comedy, and he always talked about the kids and and it was, they laughed so much, but that was about the extent of how deep we were going into, like, what's going on, what's the dynamic in this family.
We could make fun of it, but we couldn't really address any real problems.
We weren't addressing it.
No.
There was
just like, this is the way things are. Ha 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 ha.
Well, yeah, there was a lot of suck it up, buttercup kind of thing, like deal with it, just deal with it. Oh, toughen up, shit, quit being a whatever.
So those 4 common wounds, I just want to repeat them to you guys so you can look them up if they apply to you and you want to find out more information. But it's the societal expectations, it's the cultural conditioning that we go through, the generational trauma that's passed down, and then also the emotional unavailability. Those are like, in the psychology world, those are the 4 big ones when people come in. This is what people are dealing with that are the mother wounds, that just kind of hit everybody right now. Those are the big 4. And we want to move into like, how does those 4 things, we're going to look at how that manifests in relationships, because in my world, the way that we talk about stuff is, you can tell me something, but I was like, what does that look like? What does that sound like? Like, give me an example. I need the words. I need to know the actions. What does it look like? What does it sound like? Because if you haven't experienced it or nobody's talked to you about it, you're like, I don't know if I've seen that before. I don't know. What do you mean? Tell me more about that. So I would say the first thing is like mothers who criticize and compare. I relate with this so much because I've been around a lot of people who criticize and compare, not just with mother-daughter stuff, but now that we have social media, holy fuckballs. Like, it is just so bad out there. The criticize and compare. And now we have these girls comparing themselves to everything because it's all just so available. I'm like, oh man. But when it's a mother wound, what happens is that you can become hyper critical of let me start over. We become hypercritical in the relationship when we weren't validated before. So remember, we're talking about like experiencing our mother wounds. So if my mom, and luckily you guys, my mom changed her stuff. So a lot of this I didn't get, even though she was treated really poorly by her mother, she made a conscious decision to treat us differently. And if I felt like something was upsetting, I could talk to her about it, and she never like silenced me. So, but from your mom probably didn't get her feelings validated, and that you didn't get your feelings validated. And that makes people usually really critical. So I will say my mom had some higher standards for us.
I can be critical.
Well, I think that's her Scorpio side.
I hear my mother. I have expectations. I had expectations of my children.
Yeah.
But I also felt that was like a standard that I had a certain standard for them that I wanted them to live up to.
Yes, that comes next. That's like one of the next ones. But so, and what it is like, do you know if you're being validated? How do you know if you're being validated for yourself, being yourself? Feeling validated allows you to be a healthier person because then you gain confidence. So what examples of validation looks like is when somebody when we give them our feelings, like, hey, mom, I'm really sad today because, I got a C on the test or something. And my mom would say, wow, that must be hard for you because I know you really like getting A's. See, that's none of her projection onto me of like, you should have done better. I expect you to get A's. That would be the negative point of it. Her saying, wow, that must be hard for you. My feelings are getting validated because I'm telling her I'm having a hard time. Being listened to without being cut off. I can't remember a time when I was younger being cut off by my mom if I came to her to talk. She was ready to listen all the time. I got lucky. Encouraging.
I actually feel like I got lucky because I had a kid that wanted to talk to me.
I did.
And
I'm a talker.
And wanted to listen, wanted to hear.
I wanted to learn.
She wanted to hear stories from my life and experience. And so it was, I got lucky too.
Yeah. So being validated is like not getting cut off, somebody reflecting your feelings back to you. Like, oh, that must be really hard. You're not even making it about yourself. Affirmations like, wow, I'm really proud of you. Or just like little things where, wow, you're good at that. And it could be anything, that's just an action that you did that then the person says, man, I think you're really awesome. Or my mom used to tell me all the time that I'm patient. And I would have never known that about myself because I wasn't young enough to analyze and go, look at how fucking patient I am. Look at me. No, I didn't know that. She just knew it. She's like, you have the patience of a saint. Who did you get that from? Like, I don't know whose child you are. Sometimes she would say that to me because I was really patient with younger kids, or like, as people made mistakes, I'm like, that's okay. Don't worry. Come back, try again. So that's part of like, if they say something that they like about you, it feels like it's an affirmation to help boost your confidence. Those are the healthy ways to do things. But if your mother didn't hear those things, it's going to be harder for her to be able to say those things to you, So they become very critical of their daughter. So instead of saying things that encourage them, it's more like, I see you didn't pass your test again. I guess you stayed up late with that boy, didn't you? Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something.
Yeah, no, that sounds
That's
right.
a good
one?
Okay.
Yeah, or even worse. But the other thing that mothers do, besides criticize and compare, and I bet you've seen this a lot, is they try to live vicariously through their daughters. So achievements. Yeah. So they do things like get them into sports or pageants or music or even try to push them into certain careers because, they're like it, because your success, the daughter's success kind of becomes how the mother is living, maybe she never got to experience success like that.
You're living her dream.
Yeah, you're living her dream. And she's like,
living it through
I always wanted to be a lawyer, so you're going to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Pushing unfulfilled dreams. That's like the example of pushing unfulfilled dreams.
Yeah.
And
the Mean Girls movie is what I thought of.
being the cool mom, like wanting to be friends and not being
with
able
all
to
their friends and like hang out
and dress the same and all this stuff. And I'm sure you guys have seen examples of that.
Well, it's definitely been portrayed in movies.
It's been portrayed in movies, and you'll probably see it on social media too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you also see the pageant moms. I mean, the pageant and the sports moms.
They scare me.
They
scare me.
The pageant moms are really, or the ones that push them into movies and stuff. It's like, who wants this? You or the kid,
right? Like I think of Britney Spears, and even though I think she had a desire to do that, but I just think it went way too far. People pushed her. It's like I remember when I moved to Florida with Cameron. He was 4, and everybody's like, "Oh, what do you want him to be? A Disney kid?" I'm like, "I live on the other side of the state. No, I don't want him to be a fucking Disney kid. Like, do you know how messed up most of those kids are? Like, that is a fear. What? No." So trying to live through your kid because they didn't get it. Remember, we're not blaming. We're kind of poking fun a little bit, but this is because they were shut down when they were growing up. So that's why these things manifest the way they do in these relationships. Mm-hmm. Another one is pointing out the perceived flaws, to toughen them up. So this goes along with being critical of your daughter or of a mother being critical of her daughter. It's like the real world isn't real. Or the real world isn't real. No, that's my manifestation. Sorry. That's what I say now. That's the opposite of this conversation. The real world isn't nice. Like I can't, it's not even natural for me to say that. So the perceived flaws, I wrote down some because I have to say, my mom was not fucked up to me. Like it just didn't happen that way. So I had to look stuff up to find out, man, what are mean things that moms say to their daughters? Because I'm out of that world now. Like I've been on this really deep spiritual journey for so long that I just don't know those things. So, Mom, you want to read the ones that I came up with?
Sure.
Yeah.
Are you really going to wear that?
Yeah. That's me.
Or you're getting pudgy. You should watch what you eat.
Yep.
Or you're too loud and nobody likes a girl that talks that much.
Yeah. Because there's a difference, right? You could be like, hey, you're being really loud. Like maybe use your inside voice. That's okay. That's a yes. That's an okay one.
Yeah.
But nobody likes a girl who talks too much. Like now you're just shutting her down and making her feel small. Yeah.
And putting these, and also projecting these societal, like,
Yes.
is that actually it?
This is how you're going to get accepted and liked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're too sensitive. I did have a sister that was too sensitive. She literally cried about everything. Maria. So, but I
did your mom tell her that?
No, I don't think she did. But the second part of that is, you're too sensitive. Toughen up, or people will walk all over you. So there's another thing. Like if you don't do this, then this. If you don't act, if you don't behave in a certain way, like a girl's supposed to, or like I'm, you're
not going to be accepted.
You're not going to be accepted. You're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
You're not going to be beautiful and wanted and loved and all these things.
All these things we're supposed to want for ourselves.
Let's see. You're being lazy. No one is going to take care of you in the real world.
Yeah.
Stop being so emotional. No one has time for that.
That one pisses me off because being in the military as a woman, it's like you were not allowed to show any kind of emotion because then it was immediately like, oh, is it that time of the month? Like, no, I'm just really pissed off. I'm not allowed to be mad or angry or cry or sad.
Women have been getting that shit about
the period thing.
Yeah, are you PMSing?
Yeah.
I'm going to PMS you. Yeah. And then the last one you wrote was, you should be more like your sister, or you're just like your father.
Yeah.
Oh God.
The comparison thing.
Yeah.
Those go back to where we talked about the foremost common for sure. And unfortunately, I will say, I'm going to call my mom out. She did say that to my sister sometimes. She would say, why can't you be more like Jamie? And my sister was like, I'll be the absolute opposite of her. They had a tough relationship. I wish I could have got Jolene on this or it would have been a 5-hour podcast. I don't know. It would have been long because my sister felt differently. There was, from her first child to Jolene is 8 years.
Yeah.
So by the time Jolene was coming up, I mean, first off, John and I thought she was baby the most, and she doesn't feel that at all. I was like, you were mom's favorite. What do you mean? You were the only one that was planned. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you're the wanted one. Come on here. But she didn't feel like that. She's like, I'm the one that always gets shit on. I'm this, I'm that. Mom doesn't like me. I'm like, no, mom was tired by this point, and we were like struggling. So I wrote that in later there's also that point where it's not that your mom is carrying over traumas from other relationships from her childhood, but also like moms get fucking tired. We're tired, and being emotionally present is sometimes really hard. So staying aware of that factor, making time for your child, making time for your daughter to give her that good one-on-one, always a good thing. So next up is like the mothers who are emotionally distant or cold. And I definitely assigned Kat this one because that's how I think of my grandmother, who I've only met a couple times. She's emotionally distant and very cold. And it's, you think of a grandma as like loving and happy and like all warm and baking cookies. That's not in this family.
Yeah. So detached and closed off. And again, she had a tough childhood with her own mother, and her father left when she was like 3, and so
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't. Did her mom raise her alone?
Yes.
Wow. Way back then, like in the 40s or something.
Yeah, so she was born in 36. My mom was born in 36.
Damn.
36 or 38, I can't remember. But anyways, in the late. So yeah, my grandfather beat the shit out of my grandmother. This is my mother's story. Left her for dead and then left. And then, so my grandmother had a big house in Bath, Maine, which was a Navy town. And so she started renting out rooms. And so you had all these strange men coming through the house, which eventually my mother was molested by some strange men or strangers or young men or whatever, but she was taken advantage of because she was just a young girl and her mother wasn't much paying attention. So, she had, and then her mother also, couldn't wait to get her out of the house. Like my mom intentionally got pregnant when she was 15 so she could get married and get away from her mother. That was a decision she made. She told me that. And so she had 2 kids. She had my 2 brothers older than me, 11 months apart. And she got out of the house, but that didn't solve all of her problems.
Yeah.
But her, I mean, she could not express herself. I'm sure her mother was very harsh. So she would have been born in, she'd been at least 20 or 20 years older than her, probably more than that. But, that generation of people, I mean, it was the silent generation. It's like, shut up and just, do what you're told and don't say anything. That was her mother's upbringing. And so, of course, that's how she's going to raise her own kids. Like, you don't complain, you're to be seen and not heard. And so it just leaves you like really like lost or just closed
unavailable
off.
Yeah.
So we talk about also like single moms. I mean, my grandmother was a single mom for a while. I think she did get married, but I don't know when that was. I don't know if it was.
She would have had to have, right, in order to make a living or do anything.
No, because she was a nurse, and
nice.
She was a nurse, and she also rented out rooms in the house that she had.
Nice.
And so that's how they survived. And she probably got some kind of benefits from my grandfather, but I don't really know.
I think sometimes we're taught like through behavior stuff that you have to suppress the emotions, so if my grandmother was taught like your emotions are not important, so don't bring them to the table. So she learned to suppress them, which then when my mom needed to express her emotions, it was like, that doesn't fucking matter. That's not what makes the world turn, like we don't need that. You need to be doing these other things. This is how we'll find value in you, not by your contribution of like how you feel. It's the struggle to be emotionally present. And so what I remember most about my mom is like, at any time she's like, tell me everything. Tell me when things are going wrong. And she would say that to us all the time. Like, I want you to tell me. I want you to talk to me. If anybody ever does this. And she sort of gave us the down low on how bad society was and men and humans and like how the world can be really shitty, which could have been turned into like us feeling very jaded by life. But honestly, she would say, don't be scared, be aware, So she didn't want to put fear in us. That wasn't the goal. It was like, I want you to have awareness. I want you to know so that you can make better decisions. And so I did feel really prepared because she told me all the awful shit about people and men and stuff.
My biggest fear is so my mom was molested. I told you I was also molested.
Yeah.
So my biggest fear when I had children was one, them either being molested by somebody because it was so common for this to happen. And parents didn't know, like my molestation happened right under my mother's nose. It was in plain view and she just didn't even know it. So I was afraid of that. I didn't want my children to have to live with that. So I talked to them about it and I warned them and I cautioned them and, strangers and not trusting people. And I hate to say that I told them not to trust people, but I told them to be aware or be cautious and leery, I would say, of people. More like you can't trust everybody that looks nice and has a nice car, dressed nice, or even treats you nicely, because people do bad things and they're not always who they portray themselves to be. And I don't really know how I said it now, but I know that was a big fear of mine. The other big fear I had was back when I was raising my kids, all the missing kids on the milk cartons. I was so afraid of that, like one of my kids getting kidnapped. So I had some fears around what was going on in society and then what had happened to me that I passed on to my kids, but I tried to do it in a way that was empowering for them and not so that they lived in fear. And I think I did that.
You did, yeah. Because Jolene and I are both like, instead of being fearful and we don't trust people. That's true. But then again, we make friends everywhere we go. So like, I don't know, we do hit it off with people randomly, but I feel like we can just sense energy. So like, we know when to be friendly or not, I was going somewhere with that, but I forget now. It was more like, don't be scared, be aware. That was one of, we have family mottos and that was one of them because my mom did have to work like 500 jobs. And so we were left unattended when I was older, like 14, 15 years old is when you got the night job.
Yeah.
So it was Jolene and I at home and we should have kept our asses indoors, but we didn't because we're adventurous and I can't help myself. And we went exploring all the time and we hung out at KU Medical Center in Kansas City. And, I felt like we were at least safe in the building, but no, there's creeps that go to hospitals too. So there were definitely times where we were like, oh shit, we thought we were safe here, but no, there's creeps everywhere. So I don't know where we were going with that, but the single mom thing, just the being emotionally unavailable and just not present.
Yeah, I had to like basically leave my daughter and my son to raise the youngest one because when I left my second husband, I had to work 2 jobs because I didn't have enough money. And, of course, I wasn't eligible for any assistance at all because I made too much money. But it wasn't enough. It was just enough to pay all the bills and put a roof over our head and stuff like that. And then there wasn't much left. So I got a second job. And so from about the time you were 13 or 14, I started working, I went to work all day and then I came home for a couple of hours and then I was back at a second job at 7 o'clock at night till midnight.
Which is why I think Jolene experienced her upbringing
a lot differently.
She's 5 years younger than me. So if I was 14, she was 9 and our mom was absent a lot during that time.
Yeah.
It was me. And I do love this. She always credits me with having a great childhood because the stories and the adventure. I was fun.
She was fun and it was always an adventure.
It was always an adventure. I couldn't help myself. I never lived in reality when I was younger, always making up stories and running around the neighborhood. But, Jolene didn't get all of the time that I got with my mom as she was raising me when she was with my stepdad. We had opportunities for more talks and she was home in the evening and I could, I wasn't tired all the time. Yeah, tired. That was the thing about being detached and closed off. Yeah. It's like how much energy do you have for your children sometimes, for your daughters specifically when you're trying to raise one. We only get so many years with our kids.
Yeah.
And then you have to wait to have certain conversations with them when they turn like 12, 13 years old. And then they're not listening to you by the time they're 15 or 16. So you got like 2 years to really put in the work to like help them out. And if you're drained during that time, that's how they might perceive that. Is like, my mom didn't care about me. She wasn't there. She didn't listen because there wasn't opportunities. So this is, again, me making exceptions and saying, we don't want to blame them. We want to see what was going on in her life. What were our moms going through when those things were happening?
Yeah.
And then they weren't doing that to us on purpose. It was like they were dealing with their own shit.
Yeah. So, and one more thing on mothers who are emotionally distant and cold, they may have like the good daughter complex where you feel, or you may have the good daughter where you feel that you have to earn love through achievements,
right,
or earn love by getting from attention or somehow performing in some kind of way, like
just something,
like just not being being yourself is not enough, so there's this like, I gotta be, and I've seen women, and I think they're more like in between mine and your age groups, women who were in this period of time where there were all these expectations of this like good daughter or good I would say good daughter. Like a good daughter does this. She goes to school. She gets her grades. She does this. She goes to all these things. And
it's that whole thing of like what a woman, if you're going to label her as a success or that she's had achievements, it's like there's a very specific list that you need to have checked off to be considered that. And so there's a good daughter complex that is in psychology that you can read about where that's what you felt pressured to be in order to get love from your mom. You needed to be that good daughter.
There's a lot of women out there that have that. I know, because I've met some of them, and it was like this period of time, and I can't even pinpoint when it was or what was going on in society at that time, but it was real. It was very real.
Well, the reason that sticks out to me is because I always felt like Jolene felt like she was the bad daughter. So she had bad daughter complex or something. And that's not a real thing. But
because she compared herself to you.
She did.
And
I was 5 years older and we had a closer relationship. And
she compared our relationship with her relationship. And Jolene and I, we're also opposites. So I'm a Scorpio. She's a Taurus. So we're opposite
signs.
Zodiac. Yeah. And so
they're each other's reflections.
Yeah. So it's,
and you can tell it. It shows. We just had the Scorpio full moon for my sister's birthday, and it's like, oh fuck, like shit's getting real now. Like, what's gonna come of this? But actually, it's been pretty smooth because the family is all occupied with all the camera and stuff. So, But there's many aspects of that.
But the crazy thing about, like, there was a period of time when she just hated me, and I swear to God, if I could have buried her in the backyard, I would have at that time, because I think her whole point, her whole existence seemed to be to just
piss you off,
constantly do everything that she could against anything that I wanted her to do. She wanted to do the opposite. And, you know, she literally told me, fuck you, I'll do what I want, when she was 12 years old. And she brought some 18-year-old guy around the house, you know, and this is when the running away started and all kinds of other problems started with her when she was like 12. Yeah. But she just really got, you know, and her sister was about ready to go off to
the Navy.
She was about ready to graduate high school. And so when we got left alone for a couple of years, it was very rough.
Toxic. It was toxic.
And she hated me. And I can't say that I didn't really like her. I didn't like her much at that time either, because she treated me so bad. And
they treated each other kind of poorly. I mean, I don't know. I know what she did to you. I know less about, well, I do. I know what a little shit she was, and she knows it now too. So
yeah,
it's really fun being together now.
The crazy thing that happened was after those couple of years went by, and then by the time she was like 15, we became like friends. And then we were like friends and partying together and smoking weed together and shit like that.
Because my mom was like, I'm going to make sure that I raise you the same way I raised my other two kids and keep all these rules on you. And Jolene was like, fuck your rules. And then my mom finally, 4 years into that, she's like, I fucking give up. Do what you want. And Jolene's like, cool, let's hang out and smoke weed and party at your house. And she's like,
I totally did give up. I was exhausted by then. By the time she was 16, I'm like, you know, whatever, man. Your boyfriend's here. He's like 25 years old. You're 16. He's living in my house and all this kind of shit. And I'm just like, I can't, you know, I don't have that fight went out of me. Honestly, I was exhausted by that time. Like, I only got a couple years left with this kid.
And that's,
you know what? And you're so determined to have this lifestyle. And I've tried everything that I can do to guide you in another direction, and you just don't want it. So I give up.
Yeah.
And so I did. And then we were friends, and then we were out partying together and shit and having parties at the house. And her friends over. We're all smoking weed and drinking and all. Bad mothering.
Okay, so here's me. I'm like, I don't know, 20 on a Navy ship in the middle of the ocean. Haven't seen land in like 6 months. I call home because it's my mom's birthday. First off, the ruckus in the background. I'm like, what in the hell? Because I don't know this part of them. Okay, I haven't been part of their lives in a while. And they're talking about, we mixed a whole trash can of jungle juice and everybody's here. And I'm just like, what in the fuck is happening? Like, my mom's house turned into the party house all of a sudden. Like, I didn't know. That's when her and I became distant, because I was like, I don't know who my mom turned into. I don't know what's happening. I don't know that person anymore.
Listen, when Jolene got old enough and I finally didn't have to mother so much, I was like, I'm still young. I'm going out and I'm going to have fun, because it's been too many years that I haven't had any fun, you know, and I haven't.
You did the single mom, work your ass off for so long.
I did. I struggled for so long, and it was just like, I could finally breathe. And she's, you know, the youngest one. All the other two were out of the house and grown. And the youngest one was like maintaining. At least we weren't trying to kill each other or cussing each other out every day and stuff like that. So then it just became like, woohoo.
Celebration. I love it. So the last one is that you can really see in relationships, how it manifests in relationships, is that mothers get that overprotection and that control thing, you know? So when we get to that part where you're overprotective, you don't let them have their own lives, that's when the real, I mean, you've seen it all the way down to like people getting violent with their mothers or their grandmother, whoever's trying to raise them. And they're like, I will not be controlled. But mothers who live through trauma, they probably want to overprotect, you know, hopefully it comes out in a normal, healthy way, but it could be like restricting them to everything, you know, not letting them have phones, not letting them do anything, and really sitting on top of them as they're trying to develop and become who they are.
And be dictating everything. That's what my mother was doing when I was really young. Is like telling me the kind of clothes I could wear and measuring my skirt so that they were 3 inches below my knee. And then I'd go and roll them up, you know, and roll them up short. And it was just like, it was too much. She was too much control. She was trying to control everything. And that's kind of like, that was her mothering style, I would say, is control, like with the iron fist, and you'll do what I say or I'll beat your ass, you know?
Yeah. And that's where it's like, if we can try to recognize what that over controlling purpose was, it's probably to keep the children safe, to keep their daughter safe. But it can also just be that form of, you know, I don't want to let anything past my eye that I don't want to happen. Like I need to maintain control of the child, and it can become a really fucked up relationship.
I think some of it, at least for my own mother, was there was an expectation in society for how her children would behave. And so she really was, was big on like the Joneses, keeping up with the Joneses type of thing where,
yes,
she didn't want to be embarrassed.
The third point.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I really still see this today in young moms. I really see this today, and social media makes this so much worse. But it's that intense pressure to present a perfect child, because it's a reflection of their own success and what they're doing and how well they are, or even their worth. They're judging their own worth on how everybody perceives how their child is doing. It's like, if everybody loves my child and thinks my child is doing great, my daughter is amazing, then that means that I get to take credit for that. So my worth goes way up. Like that is one of the things that people, I don't hate to say use children for, but it's very true. It's like having the, older boy, younger girl, white picket fence, dog in the yard. I'm fucking successful because somewhere there's a template of that says, oh, look, it's a perfect little happy family. There's these ideals.
You really see that when you see the flip side of it. Like, let's say you got a kid that gets in trouble and ends up going to juvenile hall and stuff like that, and now you're the talk of the neighborhood because, like, oh my God,
did you hear? Horrible parent.
Yeah, or your kid ran away, and it's like, oh my God, you must be a terrible.
Like, what did you do?
Yeah, what did you do?
First off,
yeah, exactly. Because you weren't able to control your kid, or you didn't raise them right so that they wouldn't do things like that. They weren't good.
Yeah. You don't have a good kid. Your kid is wayward, sideways, acting out, going to be a criminal. Then they chalk up their whole existence to being like they're never going to make anything of themselves, because they have a couple of bad years.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so the only one that we didn't talk about because we jumped to that last one because that's like that one's intense for me because I still see it today.
Overprotection and control.
It's the perfect child thing where they find their worth from how their child is doing.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a wound deep in them for the young moms that I know that they need to dress their kid a certain way. Everything needs to be matching. They need to have certain clothes. They need to present this image like everything is really perfect. And I think a child can feel that. And eventually, they're like, yeah, this is all a facade. It's all a lie. Like, that's not even love. That's in family pictures. You're going to do this, say that like you're going to fucking look exactly how I want you to look and everything's going to be perfect to my standard. Like, that's what you're going to do. That's the kind of weird, controlling, overbearing. But what it creates is feelings of like suffocation for the daughter in the relationship, right? You're powerless and then there's resentment, which obviously leads to bad relationships. But when we over control or over protect, this is the non-normal part of it. That's what you end up creating in the mother-daughter bond is the resentment, the smothering, the having to do actions so that you feel like you can get love, live up to their standard. Yeah.
So recognizing these patterns is just the beginning. The real work lies in the healing and reclaiming of our own identity outside of our mother's influence.
For sure. That's why we all need to go off for a couple of years and do our own thing and then come back home and find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that we've unpacked, the mother wound and how it manifests in relationships, let's talk about how to start healing.
So I did do 4, shit, I can't remember now. Sorry. I put together some healing exercises for if a lot of this resonated with you or you found things that you're like, oh yeah, I should probably dive deeper into that. Maybe that it hit home a little bit. Because as I wrote this, I definitely had things where I felt like we will forever, between me, my mom, and my sister, we will forever have conversations around mine and my sister's childhood, our mother and what she went through, and all the things, these dynamics that we share today. Even though we're all close and we love each other so much, that does not mean that every moment is perfect and that we still don't feel the hurts and the pains. And sometimes what I've learned is that during the year when traumas have happened, it seems like the energy gets stuck during that cycle of the year. And you're like, damn, so this is that time when something happened and like you feel it again. So even if you have moved on, healed a little bit, processed it, but you find that those wounds resurface or come up or you feel them again or you remember them, I've written a couple of exercises for healing that you can do around these mother wounds, the mother wound. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just want to add something to that. And that is that, I agree with you about like certain times of the year can bring up certain situations.
For
like
sure.
every November, it's always my birthday month is November. Every November used to always be so fucking hard. I always got some big ass bill that I couldn't afford to pay, or just seemed like I always had like hard times in November. But I also think the other thing that can happen is not just times of year, but also there can be situations that trigger.
Yeah.
Like I know I had when I first moved here with Jolene, I had a situation where, I felt like she was trying to control me, and I didn't act I acted out in an inappropriate way and said things that I shouldn't have said and really hurt her feelings. And, it took me like reflecting on that, because at first I was just mad at her for trying to control me. Like, don't try to tell me what to do, right? I'm a grown ass woman. I don't need you telling me that I can't go do this or that. We were out somewhere and she's telling me I can't do something. And I'm like,
it's a very interesting thing how my sister will mother my mother.
What the fuck?
It's very interesting.
Yeah. So, but I was mean, and I didn't mean to be, but
you said
of course,
hurtful words.
I said hurtful words. I hurt her feelings.
Words, yes.
And then the next day when we were interacting, I was like put out. I was indignant, because she was upset with me, and I'm like, excuse me? And it took me some time of reflecting on what had happened and to realize that where my fault was in it, because I could have handled it better. And I didn't need to say harsh words because I know how sensitive that child is of mine. She's my most sensitive child. I think she's a Cancer moon. She's a Cancer moon. So she's got the, all the feels, right? So with her, I have to be especially careful with the words because they really wound her, even though there's a part of her that's like this super tough facade. Like I can handle anything. She's so tough. She's like,
my dad used to call her, oh damn, she had a license plate that said it, tough something bitch. I don't know. Damn it. I wish she was here. I'd tell you guys.
But she, she believes, and she is tough.
She's very tough.
She's tough, but you know what? She's also my child. Yeah. And so, I can wound her, and I have to be aware. It took me a long time. It took me many years, and actually coming here and going and starting this journey through healing and witchcraft and spirituality and all of this that I've done.
Awakening.
For me, it's been an awakening for me to realize, all of the things that, I could really stand to like maybe not say that, or find another way to say it that is kinder and more compassionate. And it's also taught me to be aware of other people's feelings, something that I was just like, I just say what I say, that's just who I am, right? I'm just blunt.
She played it off as a personality trait. Like, no, I get to do this because that's just who I am.
But it's something I did my whole life. So I didn't really, it took me coming to this place.
It took us saying to her, hey, that was fucked up. I think you need to rethink that. That's kind of what it took a little bit.
But it also took me like this healing journey of also deciding. I woke up one day.
And you want to be better.
And I woke up one day and I said, I want to be a kinder person, to everybody, not just to my family, but to everyone in the world. So smile more, say nice things to people, even when there's no reason to say nice. Like, I really like your dress, or your hair looks so pretty, or, just something nice.
Spread kindness.
So I made my mind up to do that. But anyway, I wanted to mention something about how words can trigger situations too. Like,
well, you know what I thought about with that is your mother wound from your mother, the way she was very controlling. And so anytime you run into being controlled, you literally are like trapped in a cage, ready to kill people, like do whatever you have to do, like a trapped tiger.
Yeah.
That is because of your mother wound. Mm-hmm. You still have a problem with authority or anybody telling you what to do.
With authority.
Like, it's still deep in her, and she's 66 years old. And that mother wound, which is not even like the situations that bring it up aren't even with women and mothers and anything. It's just that it's so deep there that when there's an aspect of in a relationship or out in public or her own daughter where it seems it's perceived control, she flips. There's a light or a switch that flips on her, and she's like, oh, no. I'll tell you what.
It's true.
Yeah.
I'm still working on that, but it's hard. So, okay. So healing the mother wound.
Yes. Healing the mother wound is all about reclaiming your power. Okay. Reclaiming your power. It's about redefining your identity, because we can change our story at any time. So redefining your identity. And it's about learning to, what does that say?
To mother yourself in ways you may not have received.
It actually does make sense. Sorry.
Yeah, that, it's
learning to mother yourself in ways that you didn't receive yet. Because that's the third one.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the one I wrote that I was like, this is very interesting. I had to dip into my psychology stuff for this, where I was like, need healing things.
Mothering yourself in ways that, you know what that says to me? It's like when you learn to love yourself. When
you're nurturing yourself. Yes.
When you look in the mirror and you can actually say to yourself, I love you.
I love you.
I like the person that you are, that you've become, or that you are now, or that you are, whatever your growth has been.
I did the I love you thing in the mirror for a long time, but now you know what I say? Like when I'm out and about and something funny happens, because my kids always get on to me about my dyslexia, and I love it. I love it because it provides so many laughs, like pee your pants laughing all the time. It just pops up out of nowhere. Sometimes when I'm ordering food, so then they just look at me like, what was that? I was like, wait, did I say that? No. And you know what I say now? My automatic response is, God, I love me. Like, I love me. That is so funny. And I find humor in my little isms. And so now, instead of saying in the mirror, I love you, because that still feels awkward, even though I did it for 30 days, I really like saying, God, I love me. Like, I love me. That's how I approach that now. So if you can sit in your car and be like, God, I love me. God is blessed. I love me. Look at me. I love me.
So that's mothering yourself.
Yes, okay, that's mothering yourself.
Nurturing yourself, caring for yourself, loving yourself.
We want to remind you that, like, this is not about blame. Remember, as you're working through all of these things that we're getting ready to talk about, it's not about blaming your mom. It's not about blaming anybody else. It's about understanding what you went through, they went through, and how this came about. And then there's acceptance in this and finding peace in it. But we want to recognize the patterns. Number one, that's why we talked about all the patterns and the way that this could come out. And then releasing the emotional cords that attach you, the energetic cords that attach you to that situation, which sounds like we could still do that for you, since like control is still a thing for you. See how I pet her and try to make her emotionally safe? Like, look, it's going to be okay. I love it. And then stepping into your own sovereignty. And that's really about, I've started saying queen to more women that I meet. Not like, hey, queen, not like that, but just that they hold the presence of a queen when they're in certain aspects of themselves, like talking to family, mothering a child, having a water balloon fight, and like really taking advantage of, the weak men in the circle where they can really bomb them. Like this weekend, I used the word queen a lot because I felt in this family that I went and saw, there was a lot of presence of like strong women. And I'm like, yes. And they're teaching the men in the family to be emotionally available and to talk about their emotions, to feel them and not be embarrassed about it. Like, oh man, it was so great. And it's because this whole family is led by a really wonderful matriarch. And I kept telling her that. I was like, wow, I've never stepped into a woman's house and felt so much of that queen energy, that matriarchal, like, you run this shit and I love it. And the men, her sons, the grandsons, everybody in this just, it was beautiful. I didn't even get to talk to you about it.
I know. I don't know who this is.
I know. And you know what I wrote her? Like we shared a lot of intimate details about our lives, obviously about Cameron, and she's going through some things medically and stuff. So we had some really nice personal conversations, but at the end of it, we were texting and she had wrote me this really beautiful message about getting to meet me, because we've known of each other for 11 years.
Is this in Kansas City?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. St. Joe. We've known about each other and we've met in person before, but we have never taken the time out to really have a one-on-one conversation. And I think for both of us, we were closed off because we're like, ooh, okay, how much do we really need to know each other? It's like comfortable boundaries, just like, hi, nice to meet you. Oh, thank you. All the pleasantries. But this time, it was kind of like, when I'm going through shit, I am an open box. I have less of a filter. I'm just like, I'll tell you everything that's going on in my life. It doesn't matter.
She meant an open book, not an open box.
I could be an open box if I want to. You don't get to tell me what I am.
That was an example of dyslexia when you say one word, you mean something else.
An open box. I love
like
that.
a present.
Like a present. Exactly. I'm an open box.
Maybe she is an open box.
I fucking love that. I didn't even realize I said that and it was weird. Yes. There you go. As I was talking, I love me for that. See the laughs that come from that. It's such a blessing. I love my fucking isms, whatever that is. And now I don't know what I was saying.
Okay, so, well, you were talking about your experience with the queen that you
the queens.
You know, and all
I
of
met
that.
queens, multiple, but
Queens,
the essence of that. So I think that we should spend more time meeting women and appreciating them for where they're at. And, you know, I'm not saying you have to fall in love with every woman you meet as a spiritual soul, but to appreciate them for where they're at and what they're going through and to be fucking kind to each other. Because I think that when I was growing up, women were pitted against each other. I think that that was when all the rom-coms were, where it was like the cheerleaders versus the art nerds. And I was an art nerd. And so my growing up felt like women were pitted against each other all the time because somebody had to have like the number one man pick or whatever the fuck, or do the number one career or be this. There was so much competition. And as I get older, I just really love seeing that we don't have to compete. Actually, we can just appreciate each other where we're at, what we do, what we like, what we don't like. You know, for weed smokers, drinkers, non-drinkers, non-weed smokers, children or women with children, women without children. We just got people with cats. We got people with dogs. We got the plethora of women leading their lives and doing their things. And I just think that we should love each other through our journeys.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like this weekend.
Yeah.
I will stop there because it could be a 3-hour podcast.
Okay. So let's break down 3 powerful healing practices.
Yes.
Shadow work.
I had to. You have to do shadow work.
Yeah.
So what is shadow work? First, help us with this practice, Mom. Tell us what shadow work really is, because this word is thrown around a lot. It's such a fucking buzzword.
Well, if you think of what the shadow is, it's the part that you don't see, right? It's the side we don't see, the dark side of the moon.
The hidden parts.
The hidden parts of
the
us.
hidden parts, yeah.
And it's the things that maybe we hide from shame, or maybe we hide from ourselves because we just don't want to deal with it. We're not at that place yet where we can process the things that we feel a certain way about. So it is literally the part of ourselves that we don't want people to see. And sometimes we don't even want ourselves to see.
You bury them. You repress them, you deny them.
Yeah.
These are the parts of ourselves that we're like, nope, that doesn't exist.
These are the parts
That's
that
the
are
unopened box.
Yeah. These are the shadow work is that oh, sorry.
My nephew's about to come inside, so he doesn't know we're recording right here.
Tank.
It's
sorry
okay.
about that.
We should put Tank on camera.
Yeah.
Hi, G.
Hey, buddy. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah.
I forgot he was getting off work and coming home.
That's okay.
And the dog. So sorry about that.
This is real life, you guys. We record in Kat's
living room,
living space, and this is where we do
one day
stuff.
we'll have a fancy studio.
Will we? Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. We'll have a real studio. We're going to be like New Heights. I want the New Heights studio. Travis, the Kelsey brothers,
I love
New
it.
Heights.
Yes.
Okay. So shadow work, you're saying you were with buried, repressed, denied.
Right. Those are the parts of ourselves that we bury, we repress, and we deny. And like Kat was saying, it's just the part of ourselves we don't really want to acknowledge. It's like, ooh, I don't want to go there. Like, then I have to admit all the icky feelings that I have around something. Like, I'd rather just live in fantasy land.
Well, an example for me is, I always just said about myself, like, I'm just blunt. Right.
What? Yeah, exactly.
No. Okay. So when I finally reconciled that part of me, I was like, no, you're just fucking rude and a bitch, and you can do better than, you can use the excuse, or I could use the excuse, I'm a Scorpio, I just say what's on my mind, which is true. I do say what's on my mind, but there's a way to say it that is not demeaning to other people. And I just don't think that for a long time I really thought about it. I was just kind of like,
she didn't consider other people's feelings.
I did not. And that's a shadow side of myself that's embarrassing when I look back on it and I think about all those years that I spent, being that way and not even recognizing that I was being that way. So it's hidden from me, wasn't hidden from anybody else. So
right. So the shadows often include like the unspoken rules that we internalized from our mothers as well, right? Like I have unspoken rules from you. That,
Do you?
Sure. Yeah. I wrote about them.
In here?
No. Somewhere.
Oh, in your journal somewhere?
I mean, I did a lot of work around growing up and how, feeling like the honest truth protected me, but also set me up to really never want to commit to anybody, be anywhere, settle down ever, be restricted in any way. I took on these things that were yours of don't be controlled. Don't let anybody tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Fight against all costs.
Yeah.
And I don't know that was me naturally, because I think I'm more of a I'm such a, what do they call it? Happy-go-lucky, easy-go-lucky, whatever. I'm just like a go with the flow kind of person. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It doesn't affect me. But my mom taught me to be such a fighter that I wanted to actually fight people. Like I was ready to, really fight for myself. And I love that about me. I still love that about me. I love the fighter in me, but I got that from my mom. And so it doesn't always have to be a wound. Sometimes it is, because when I lose a battle, I'm fucking devastated and I'm pissed and I'm like more angry and I get more resentful. So there's the bitter part of losing that I might've got from her, but I'm more like, I'm not competitive and I don't care. Most of the time I'm like, I don't give a shit. We all die in the end. What does it matter? Your gold star is going to go in the trash one day. Like I'm cynical a little bit like that too. So yeah, okay. I mean, it's good things. There's both.
I kind of like
that
I made her a fighter. Actually, I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't mind it at all.
But
I don't mind it at all.
The thing with Jamie is she's got, like all your kids, like all kids have their own personalities. Yeah. And while you're going to imprint on them some of your things, you're not ever going to change their personalities. I don't think.
I think you always return to it.
They're always going to go back to who they naturally are. But
it's the internalized rules that we get from our mothers is it's beliefs about our worth. And I got really lucky because my mom told me basically I could do anything. I could be anything. Like the world is mine. The world's my oyster, conquer it as I want to. Our bodies. So that was one that probably was more, being beautiful in our family was not something that was like, you need to be presentable all the time. Like I was a tomboy forever and she didn't care. There was never a thing on your body where you needed to be a lady. She let me wear whatever I wanted. So our capabilities, again, a mother to daughter relationship where it's more nurturing as far as you can do anything, especially now, it's like we can do anything. The world really is our oyster at this point. Like we really can achieve anything. And, having a woman president, we'll leave it at that. That's just, we're going to be there. And then our emotional expression. My mom never denied my feelings and what I was going through, except in times where it was like, it was going to be a detriment to me. And so there's ways to nurture and then also make them resilient. And I think that when you have a balance of that, those are the unspoken rules. So think about that for when you're doing this shadow work. What did your mom teach you about your worth? What did she teach you about your body, your capabilities, your emotional expression? What are you allowed to be, do, say, hear, be around? What's acceptable? Are you allowed to have any mate you want? Is there, there's all these little unspoken rules of what does your mom accept? And then that makes you either what? Do you accept it all and try to live up to that good daughter thing? Or are we rebelling against it? So when we think about those things and write about them in the shadow work, we're going to start asking ourselves some questions. So I talked a lot. You say the first question.
Okay. First question.
Yes.
Unspoken rules. What unspoken rules did your mother teach you about being a woman?
Mm-hmm.
For example, you must always put others first, or don't make waves, or good girls don't talk back, or good girls do this, or good girls do that.
Yeah.
Women are not safe in this world.
Yeah. That is one of the things that I wrote about for me, is that I realized really early on, because my mom told me about the sexual abuse that happened to her. Women are not safe in this world. And I realized that when I had a man counselor or I had a man teacher, I needed to be a little more guarded. I needed to be a little more afraid, especially being alone with anybody. And that did not serve me wrong. Is that, how do you say that?
Yeah. And it probably didn't come natural to you either.
It didn't come natural to be untrusting.
It was something that had to be, that I had to teach.
You had to teach me. Yes.
I had to teach because for your own safety.
For my own safety.
Yeah.
And
there was a couple situations where she was
Yep.
With the teacher.
My
one
school
with
counselor.
Counselor.
My school counselor,
like
yes.
inappropriate stuff. And
if my mother had not taught me what she taught me, I 100% would have been raped by my school counselor, because I started my period at school. We're going to make a long story short. I had my period at school. No big deal. You get to go home, you bled in your pants, not a big deal. But I had 2 security guards at my school, and they are the ones who were supposed to escort students home. Gabe and Charlie were their names. And instead, I had to go to my counselor to get permission. He's the liaison. That motherfucker was like, no, I'll drive you home. Dr. Chavez was his name. Dr. Chavez, right? Trust. Here we go with like hierarchies. He drove me home. He's supposed to drop me off. And he was like, no, come in and wait. I was like, I definitely just plan on staying home the rest of the day. He's like, nope, just get showered up and changed and you can come back to school. Because it was like 11:30. School lets out at 2:15. Why'd I have to come back? And I didn't call my mom. So this was like, I realized parts where I should have, I already knew something was wrong, because him coming to my house, I was like, this is fucking weird. I know you're my school counselor, but like a random stranger man in my house, this is very weird. So I went upstairs and took a shower, and our bathroom door did not have a lock on it. You had to pull the drawer out so that the door couldn't open. That motherfucker came all the way upstairs and tried to open the door and asked me if I needed help. And I knew then I was in trouble. And where our house was, we were on the 3rd story. So I thought about what it looked like me jumping out of the bathroom window, probably break a leg. So I knew I had to like get showered. I didn't take my clothes in there because although I didn't trust him, I didn't actually think that this was going to happen. I was like, no way. Like, he's a Dr. Chavez from the school. He would get in so much trouble if he ever tried anything. Like I would fucking scream, like, right? Nope. He tried. So before I ran out of the bathroom in my towel to my room, which was just across the hallway, and then back into the bathroom, he had already been outside the door. So when I opened the door, he was not out there. I had turned the TV on downstairs for him to be waiting for me, ran to my room, grabbed clothes, came back in the bathroom, opened the fucking door again. And I literally started getting dressed like, yeah, I guess I'm going back to school. This is crazy. The phone was downstairs, it was the like with a cord phone, right? The old
the one that was tethered to the wall.
We had the extra long cord so we could go in the bathroom and talk privately, though. But our house was like 2 stories. So when I got dressed, I was really afraid to go downstairs and tell him I was done getting ready, because when I was blow drying my hair in the bathroom, he literally tried to get in again and was like, I'm just checking if you need help. And I'm like, help with what? You fucking weirdo. Like, what do you mean? Trying to act innocent. Like his words, he tried to act like, I'm just trying to help you. Yeah, creep. When I finally went downstairs, I'm fully dressed. And I tell you, what I grabbed for clothes, because I already knew, because I was already thinking rape. I can't lie, because my mom had already told me this thing can happen. I got overalls and a bodysuit. So I had overalls, bodysuit, all the things that make it not easy. I didn't put on a dress or a skirt. Like, fuck no, I was thinking. So I think at that point he realized there was nothing. And when I went downstairs, my energy, my physical face was just like, okay, I'm ready to go. Like, I'm in his car. I'm on his time. He is the adult. He's the doctor. He hugged me and groped me and said, let me see if you feel as good as you look. And that was the abuse to it. I transferred within 2 weeks. We went to a new school. And at that new school, I did tell my counselor there what happened.
So was he at Harmon?
Harmon.
Okay.
He was at Harmon in Kansas City, Kansas.
That was right when we moved.
That was right when we were moving, yes.
If I knew about this, I blocked it out because...
Well, what happened, which was really great, and you got many prompts for this, because I can't leave you guys hanging on the story. What the fuck happened to Dr. Chavez? That motherfucker, let me tell you something. When I got to the new school and I reported to my new female counselor what happened and all of the ways that I'm disgusted by men, because I said I'm not going to have another male counselor. They had to give me somebody else because, you're assigned by your last name, and my last name was Williams, and boom, there you go. I got a female counselor, and I told her everything that happened. She goes, did you report this? I'm like, who's going to believe that? Like, they're not going to do anything. Like, what do you mean? Let me tell you, ladies, something. My counselor, that was a badass bitch. I love her. She went ahead. She was like, write your statement down. We're taking this to the school board right now. How about this? I take my statement to the school board. They make me repeat it 3 times after I've wrote it in front of people, making sure I'm telling the truth. And when my statement went forward, they suspended Dr. Chavez. And when girls found out he was suspended, he had actually been sexually molesting, sleeping with, raping, touching women in that school. And they all came forward. And it was because I broke the silence. I didn't get to meet any of them. I didn't have to go to fucking trial or anything, but he was sentenced to 6 years in jail over all of that because there were so many girls that came forward from that. So I'm very happy with what I did, but I diminished it, right? I didn't tell anybody the day that it happened. There were lots of things where I realized that wasn't great because I just didn't think anybody would care. But Dr. Chavez believe it. And they did test me. And this is where you come in, because when I told my story and I wrote my story, do you know what they told me? Yeah. I was only 16. They said, "You speak really well for a 16-year-old. I was like, "Thank you. My mother has me read a lot of books." Like, I told her, I was like, basically, she makes me sound as smart as I am right now. Like, that's why my vocabulary is so good, because we read a lot of books. Like, yeah. So that, I don't know why we were telling that story, but it's
not safe in this world, because we talked about women are not safe in this world.
We're not safe in this world.
Women are not.
And it prepared me for things that then,
later happened later on. Okay.
I was always afraid I would get raped, and that has not happened. So I'm winning.
You've won so
Which
far.
is sad, right? Sad
so next question, how do these rules show up in your life? So again, these are prompts for when you're doing your shadow work. Mm-hmm. How do these rules show up in your life?
Yes.
So well, what's yours? What's your statement here? I'm not going to read it for you.
I have a lot of anxiety around people, especially men. Like, when the whole choose the bear thing came out, I was like, yeah. Were we not all living like that before? I can't believe it's just coming out. Like, it gave me the words for all the things I've been feeling my whole fucking life.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, I felt like that as I felt unsafe in a lot of situations as a woman when I was younger. But the beauty of getting older is that all of a sudden people don't see you anymore. So now you're like, although not that older women don't get assaulted too, because they do, but you're definitely not a target that like you are when you're younger, and hotter. Yeah. So
hotter. Meet societal expectations for hot. Yeah,
exactly.
It's how the rules show up in your life. What actions do you take that are because of the things that your mother taught you, did, displayed? I mean, and it can be as far as like you only get involved with men who are really insecure and you want to fix them. I mean, there's things like that. It's we've all gone down these paths where when we pick partners, when we pick jobs, when we don't think we're capable enough, like I said, I'll continue to say, I feel like I got really lucky with my mom because of how bad her mom was, that she flipped the switch. But there's not things that don't affect us that I know, because I've seen it in other women and I know what people struggle with. And then I've been through things myself. Even as prepared as I was, shit still happened to me. So finding out how it affects you in your daily life, this is where we can create real change and, just keeping ourselves safe. That's all I think about. Like, I'll still always be focused on that. I tell you guys, you can change, and then I'm like, no, but stay safe. Because safety first, man.
We live in a world where women, even today in 2025,
absolutely 100%.
are still not safe, and maybe we're even less safe than we were like 5 or 10 years ago.
It gets scarier sometimes
because some of the things that are going on in our society, in the world. Okay, so what emotions do you feel when you think about your mother's expectations? Yeah. Write freely without censoring yourself. Let the raw, unfiltered feelings come out. So, I just want to share where I'm at with my own mother. She is, I think, 88. I'm 66. She's 22 years older than me. So she's 88. But I don't have a relationship with her. And what I finally had to accept was that after all the years of trying, and there's been times where, I could go visit her and it would be nice, but she never really, after my stepdad died, she just kind of like withdrew. And so I didn't push it. I figure at this point, and I'm in my 60s now at this point when this happens. And I'm just like, I have to accept that this is who she is, that we're never going to have that mother-daughter relationship that I wish that we had. What was broken or what was damaged or the water under the bridge and all of that, there's no going back. So for me, for this lifetime with this mother, I don't get that. And I accept that now, and I'm not hurt about it, and I'm not angry about it. I'm just like, it is
Indifferent.
that I do really truly feel indifferent. What I feel more than anything, what it makes me recognize more than anything and appreciate more than anything is the relationship that I have with my own children. And that gives me a lot of joy that I'm not going to be in 20 years from now, when I'm in my 80s, I will still have, my children will give a shit
We're
about
obsessed
me.
with her. Yeah.
They'll care about me. They will make sure that I'm okay.
Always.
They won't ever let me move away. They'll always be, that's our mom, right?
She's in our clutches now.
Like, that's my mom. I love my mom, right? And my mother and I won't have that, and that's just,
you can resolve it in another lifetime.
That's just this life,
Yeah, that's just this life. So the next question for shadow work would be, if you could speak to your younger self, what would you say to her?
Your mother. Your younger self is yourself?
No, your younger self as yourself, because you have your mother, right? So you're dealing with your mother shit. Okay. What would you say to your younger self, having your mother as your mother?
Oh, wow.
I know we didn't write anything for that because it's deep.
Because it's very deep.
I really want you guys to ponder these questions, because for me, what would I say to my younger self? I'd say, my mom's fucking right. Watch out for all the creeps. Like, that proved to be true in my life.
And I think I wish I could have reconciled, when I was much younger, the abandonment and the feeling, being abandoned, because my mom left me the first time when I was 8 months old until I was 3. And then she kicked me out of the house, or threw me out of the house, or however you want to call it. But she basically discarded me when I was 11. So I wish that I could have reconciled and not taken all of that abandonment and feeling unloved. And I wish I could have reconciled it when I was young, because it would have saved me a lot of, would have saved me in relationships and intimate relationships that I had later, where I let a lot of things slide, and I picked people that needed me, or that I felt needed me, or that I wanted to need. So I needed to be needed. Yeah. That was
needed to be wanted.
I needed to be wanted. I needed to be loved. And so that, that sent me on a path of where I didn't have successful, intimate relationships, and never have. So that's what I would talk to my younger self about that. Like, how do you deal with that? How do you put that how do you compartmentalize that so that it doesn't, then you go on and you can feel good about yourself.
We needed to get you into tarot cards and astrology way back then. We needed to get you into the hippie world way earlier. Yeah, because it would have been so much more reflection about the journey and not like the specific circumstances. Right. That's what I feel like being a witch has led me to, is that I don't see things from such a level 1 is here, where it's ego interacting with our environment. And I don't know how many levels there are, but I'm so many levels up, where when things happen to me, it's kind of like, they're happening to me in this life, to this Jamie, to this person right now, but they have bigger implications, and there's an overarching theme of lessons. And like, I don't take it as personally as some other people might take it.
Even all the things you've been going through for, I don't even know how long it's been now, but it's been a while, where you're like, what the fuck, universe? But then also, like, I know there's lessons in here. I know there's
a lot of
there's a lot for me to learn from this. And so I'm just trying to
process the learning,
keep myself open to the lesson.
Definitely.
Keep myself open to what the universe is trying to guide me to, teach me.
What am I learning?
Yeah. What am,
reflecting on my beliefs. Do I let things get me down? Is it, you know? And it is kind of weird, because I keep saying, like, I haven't let all of this stuff in yet, but I don't know if it will ever come in, because I'm just kind of okay. It's like, whatever's going to happen, these are lessons, and I'll work through it, and it's going to be okay.
We've got a long way to go, and we've been on here an hour and 30 minutes. Do you want to try to get through all this?
Listen.
Okay. So, all right, we're going to.
I pressed it.
What? Prefaced
that this was going to be a longer one.
This is going to be a longer one. Okay, so let's talk about rituals for shadow work, for shadow integration. Ritual for shadow integration.
This is a small ritual that you can do that I wrote out. I made it very small.
Okay, so here's what you need. A black candle, and if you don't have black, you can use
any candle you want. Lighting a candle starts the ceremony. Yes.
So, and the candle represents the hidden part of yourself, the black.
That's right, because you're lighting it up, you're illuminating it.
Okay, and then you're going to write down the unspoken rules that you are ready to
Release.
let go of and release.
Yeah.
Read them aloud, acknowledging their impact. Burn the paper as a symbolic release, visualizing the rules dissolving into ash.
That's right. You don't have to keep them.
Close by placing your hand over your heart and saying, I release these rules. I'm free to define myself.
That's right.
It's super easy.
Yes. See? We talked a lot, but actually what I wrote was not that big.
That's good.
Okay. With practice too, you guys have all heard about energetic cord cutting or just cord cutting rituals. But this is a good one, especially if you can really visualize. When we're doing energetic cord cuttings, like visualize the string, whatever color you want it to be, golden, white, black, brown, red, green, doesn't matter. But there's a cord between you and the people that you have emotional connections with. And that's everywhere. Everybody you've had an emotional connection with, there's a cord to them. And if you want to get rid of that, this is how you could do it. The symbolic way where they tie 2 candles together and they burn it and do all that, that's also okay. But energetic cords are invisible threads of attachment, and they bind us to other people because of the interactions that we've had with them. It's especially with those that we share intense emotional connections with, people who have hurt you, made you happy, that you've shared experiences with. Those energetic cords attach us. When you have a memory, that is literally the energetic cord. You're reactivating it like you pick a guitar string, ding, it has a sound. When you think of that memory, you can imagine a sound plays where you connect with them. That's why sometimes when we think of people, they call us, because you're picking that cord of energetic connection. All right. So the emotional connections that we have with our mothers, like some cords are healthy and loving, and others are like rooted in guilt and control and unmet expectations. Okay. So signs that you need to do a cord cutting ritual of some kind. You're feeling drained after interactions with your mother, specifically. You're replaying old conversations and you're feeling emotionally stuck. This is like when Kat talks about how her and Jolene had a hurtful conversation. If Jolene replays this over and over and over again, she's never going to heal from it. It will continue to be a thing. So whatever conversation or words you're playing over and over in your head, probably a good idea to do an emotional cord cutting for that so that you can stop replaying it and stop hurting yourself. There's also the feeling of like obligations to meet other people's expectations and then the disappointment that might come with that. But cord cutting rituals in general, you're just going to start with like preparing a sacred place, right? Like whatever that is, candles, incense, crystals, whatever you can bring in that makes you feel more connected. Pick crystals that identify with your purpose. Rose quartz for self-love, for example. We always have rose quartz around. It's a very easy crystal to get. And you want to close your eyes and take like some breaths to get yourself to that place. Imagine you're with that string that you're plucking that has the sound to that energy. Visualize the cord of energy stretching from your solar plexus, which is where we build our confidence. It's yellow. It's just under your sternum. And it's the center of your power, and it connects you to your mother, okay? Notice if you don't see it, like the solar plexus is yellow, but your cord could be another color. See if it has a color for you and just notice like, what's the sensation? Does it feel like a bad tie? You know, if you have negative energy, does it feel like a corroded old rope that you wish that you could cut loose from? When you are cutting the cord, you want to like visualize a pair of scissors, and you can make them a beautiful, sparkly golden or silver, or just their bright light. Give it something that feels majestic to you so that when you're cutting it, it feels like it's coming from a place of good, not bad. You're going to gently but firmly cut that invisible cord as you're thinking about it, and say something like you release the attachment, but with love and with understanding and with acceptance, with compassion, because you want to reclaim your power. You're cutting that cord to let all that energy that's draining out through that cord, you want to cut it and like let it be with you now. You're no longer feeding that conversation, those words, that interaction, whatever it is. You can watch the cord, like you can imagine it dissolving as you've cut it and going back into you so that you're reabsorbing the energy that you were always giving to that situation where it hurt. And then you can also surround your mother on the other end with that healing light of, yeah, you know, listen, I love you and I wish well for you, but like, I've got to cut this because it's what's best for me, through that emotional thing. Aftercare type things, when you do something like this, really get into your emotions, have that deep, long cry, sit there with yourself for a long while, you know, like it was a true umbilical cord connecting you with her. But then you can, you know, when I'm in the shower, I visualize all the negativity draining off of me. So take a shower, take a bath, visualize all the negativity draining off of you. And then journal anything that comes through while you're doing this. I always find that I'm surprised the things that pop into my head when I'm doing rituals like this or a spell like this. It's just random shit pops in my head. I'm like, why did I think of a gopher? What does that mean? And I look it up later and I'm like, a gopher means da 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 da. So the shit comes through when you're doing this that you don't expect. Just write it down. Don't judge it. Just write it down and you can look into it later. So practice 3.
Okay. Healing practice 3, reparenting yourself. Becoming the mother that you needed. Reparenting is an act of love. Giving yourself love, validation, and encouragement that your mother may not have been capable of providing.
Yeah.
It's a powerful way to nurture your inner child and cultivate a sense of safety and unconditional love. So how to reparent yourself? Self-soothing techniques. When you feel overwhelmed or triggered, place your hand over your heart and say, I'm here, I'm safe, I'm loved. Wrap yourself in a soft blanket, and symbolizing the loving embrace that you may not have received. Inner child letter writing. Write a letter to your younger self expressing all the things you wish your mother had said to you. Example, I see how hard you're trying, and I want you to know that you are enough just as you are. You don't have to earn my love. You already have it. And daily affirmations. Repeat these affirmations each morning to reinforce a sense of self-worth. I am worthy of love without conditions. I validate my own emotions. I'm proud of myself just for being me.
Yeah, you can always do the thing I do. God, I love me. Yeah.
Creating rituals of nurturance. Dedicate one day a week as a mothering day when you do things to make you feel cared for. A nature walk, baking your favorite childhood treats, or creating a cozy reading nook. Write yourself a loving note before bed, just as a nurturing mother might. Those are lovely.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I really like the cooking thing because I just thought,
Cooking
what
stuff,
popped
yeah.
into my head when I said
Cooking
your
treats?
favorite. Yeah, I don't remember ever having Rice Krispie treats, but for whatever reason, Rice Krispie treats reminds me of childhood, and I don't know that we ever had them.
I made them all the time.
Okay, well, maybe that's where I got it from because I don't think we had Rice Krispie treats.
Growing
But
up?
Rice Krispie treats reminds me of childhood. It's like,
Wow.
I would totally make Rice Krispie treats. And cooking, I think, is a lovely way to get your energy
It's
into
so hands-on.
things.
It's creative. It's like you're really there. Yeah.
Yes. And then you can share it when you're done, when you're done cooking. So, all right.
This is totally a little bit off subject, but I was back in the Kansas City area and I've never been there in the warmer months like May. I haven't been there in May since I was a child. I don't know.
Really?
Long time. Yeah, no, I haven't been there. But do you know that when I went back, I got to see the fucking plant that I used to make mud pies with, Jolene. Like it looked to me when it turns brown or even when it's green, it looks like pieces of oatmeal that you would get. And we used to go and find that plant and we would strip it and use that in our mud pies to make mud pies because it looked like oatmeal. It was an ingredient. I saw the clovers that we used to eat as kids and these little white flowers. It's not a clover, but I think we used to call them a type of clover. But these little white flowers we used to always make fucking flower crowns with. Oh my God. And I kept telling her, I was like, I'm seeing these childhood flowers that I haven't seen in forever this weekend. It was so wild. I know.
Wow.
It really, it sparked something in me. I was like, I was truly happy seeing those. It made me, and I don't know what the trees are called that have the little things when you pick them up and you let them go, they spin, they helicopter. Because we don't have those here. Okay. It's like a maple. I don't know. Yeah. But if you guys live in the Midwest or probably up north, they have them everywhere. Florida doesn't have things like that. We have fucking palm fronds and dates and coconut things that drop everywhere. We have like not the funnest plants here as natives. But there are these little things that we would call them like helicopter. And there's a little seed inside of them. And they have like it's a flaggy looking thing. And you just hold them up. And when they drop, they go. I'm trying to remember what that is. Like a kid, everybody was in the house. I went out and I was like, yeah, I got to go do this for myself. Like I have to re-engage my childhood joy. I love that. And I went out there and did all this. Do you know what I found out? Yeah, there was poison ivy or oak in the yard. And did you get it? No, because I don't get poison ivy or oak. Oh, God, I would. No, you remember when in Edwardsville, when everybody got poison ivy and oak and I was the only kid that didn't? You were like, did you step in? I was like, I went where everybody else went. I don't know why I didn't get it. I don't think I can get it, but I washed my hands to be sure. But yeah, the whole time I was picking these things up and doing that, she's like, that's poison ivy all over there. I was like, oh, good to know. Just back in the Midwest where you can randomly get poison ivy. I love that.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I'm glad you had that experience because,
nurturance, yeah.
Well, because you've not had a good feeling about Kansas City. I
It's
feel
been
like
really
for a long
tough.
time.
Always, yeah.
And
a lot of bad memories
It
there.
almost sounds like this was so.
It was very like. It was, we kept leaving. When Tony and I were leaving, they were like, that was such a great weekend. That was such a great weekend. I had so many good things. We took walks out in nature. It was just the plan, all the things that I was reminded of. I was like, wow, like I want to go build a nest. Jolene and I, we had this massive big yard where there were probably 10 duplexes that all shared a big backyard, right? So it was massive. That's the size of a football field for sure.
A couple football fields, yeah. Probably
And
2 football fields.
Nobody mowed their grass on time, which was okay because, we had a lot of really tall grass to plane and we would make these little bird nests. I don't know. I lived in a precarious little adventure world where every day was a different.
I think you wanted idyllic more, like your little dream world.
My little dream. Everything was every day was a different storybook. Yeah. We would make these big bird nests out of everything, and I don't know.
Yeah,
all of that it came rushing back. It was so great. I was like, wow, this is a really good feeling. Yeah. I thought I'd share that with you.
Well, thank you if you're still here with us, thank you so much. We're going to wrap this up now. Yes. And
it's a big conversation.
Yeah, it is a big conversation. And I hope that this helped you in some way with your own mother wounds.
Or somebody else that it could help. Yeah.
Healing the mother wound is not about rejecting or resenting our mothers. It's about releasing the patterns and narratives that no longer serve us so that we can reclaim our authentic selves.
Absolutely. As we step away from the conversation, remember, the mother wound is not a curse. It's not a curse. It's a call to heal, to transform, and to rise. You are not the stories you were told, nor the pain you inherited. You are the alchemist. I love that. Mm-hmm. We are alchemists. We get to turn our pain into whatever the fuck we want. That's why we're witches, right?
Yes.
You are the alchemist, you are the healer, and you are the sovereign witch reclaiming her power.
Until next time, keep weaving your magic, tending to your wounds, and walking the path of your own becoming. Blessed be, beautiful souls.
Blessed be. Mwah. Bye, witches.